Hello, everybody. Good to have you here. And if you're watching this on recording, I think you're going to be in for a real treat. The guests this week are people that I've known for a few years. Their son, Zach, passed literally within weeks of my son, Tommy, and their journey has been pretty extraordinary. The way they learn how to communicate with Zach, what they've built to support others on their grief journey. And one of my particular favorite areas is what they've built in their home. They've built a psychomantium. In fact, they are sitting in it, which is why they look as if they're sitting in quite a dark space. It is the psychomantium where they're sitting, and I'm not going to share any more than that about it, but it's just fascinating what they've been able to achieve in there. So it's great to have you here, Krista and Martin. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. We look forward to having a chat.
Yeah. Now, let's start first of all with Zach. Share with everybody a little bit about Zach.
That's up to you, Krista. Go for it.
That's up to both of us.
Come on.
So, gosh, Zach, like all of our kids and loved ones, we love him dearly, and he is an amazing soul, and he has led us on this journey since he's passed. Actually, before he passed, he was giving us breadcrumbs, but we didn't know at the time that he was going to go home.
No, can you just share just a little of that? I don't think I was aware of that.
So he passed. Zach, if you didn't know, was a race driver, racing car. He raced cars for his job. That's what he did. So he was in the car a lot. But he didn't pass in his racing car. He passed in his road car. And he said, how long?
About 3 months before.
3 months before he passed, he said to some of his friends, which was very unlike him, not like his character at all. I mean, he would never say this, but he said, when I die, is what he said, I'm going to go sideways. What did he say?
Sideways with a smile on my face.
With a smile on my face. Yeah, sideways with a smile on my face in his car.
Wow.
And he did.
And he did. That's how he passed. He hit a tree.
Yep.
And then a few weeks before he passed, so he, on his phone, he always had photos of race cars, his racing car, racing, girls, or racing and girls, both.
That was pretty much it.
That's it. That was all he had on his phone. But a few weeks before him going home, he changed his photo to the Northern Lights.
We'll come to that later.
And we'll come to that later, yeah. But that was another really odd, peculiar thing. We're like, why would he never would do that. And that was only a few weeks before he went home. And that led us, and Martin can tell you the story, but that led us on another journey after he passed, which was...
How I'm curious, because it reminds me a little of my own journey, because Tommy, of course, sideways hit a tree in a car as well. But I remember reflecting, I think probably the day after, of things that had happened leading up to it. At what point did you start to think, hang on, what point did you start to join the dots that there's something here?
Well, for me, I think just a few weeks before he went home, I was stood in the kitchen with him, and our souls, obviously, I believe our souls know when we're going, and my soul knew Zach was going to go ahead of me, but maybe this physical body or our brains didn't know, but our souls and minds did. So, and Kathy's did as well. I remember saying to Zach, looking at him in the kitchen, and I said, Zach, if anything ever happens to you, Dad and I will die with you. And I said that to him just weeks before he passed. And, being Zach, gives me a big hug. Oh, Mom, don't be silly. Nothing's going to happen to me. I'm fine. Da, da, da. And then a few weeks later, he had his...
In a way, we did.
So, yeah.
And I think we all did in a way, because the moment that Zach went home, we found that out, we also changed. So the Martin and Krista, when Zach had a physical body, did die. And there's two bodies here that are the same as they were before. But we're
They're a little older.
but we're two different people, and we continue to evolve. And I think we're always, all of us are always evolving. I think these transitions just give us a big jump or a big push. So I think you're right. I think we did all die that day.
I think from the people I know that are in the audience here now, there are certainly some of them like us that had an inkling. They didn't know, but there were a couple of odd things, almost like a little was trickling into your consciousness as what was coming for you to say those words. And for me to be fixated on car crashes that last month, looking at the stats for our, not thinking it would ever happen to my kids, but absolutely fixated on car accidents. And I know there's a couple of people here that had similar vibes, not full knowings, but vibes. And then, of course, like you said, there are others that it just hits them like a sledgehammer, but that cracks them open. Yeah, transformation begins.
Exactly.
And that's what's happened, And that's what led us on this journey. So would we rather have Zach here physically? Of course we would. We'd all rather have our loved ones and kids here. Of course we would physically. However, I'm thankful that he's led us on the journey he's led us on, and we've gone down the path we have. We've met some beautiful souls that I believe we already knew each other before we came here, and we just decided we were all going to come back together this time in our lives and help each other, as Shelley says, walk each other home. And
tell me a bit about that journey over the last, because we're coming up, I know, because of the time, the similarities of time, we're coming up 5 years this year. So what's that journey over these, how has it evolved from that first day to, I know, all the marvelous things that you have done, and I want you to walk us through it, and I'll just interrupt you here and there on the way, but just share.
I'll throw a couple out there, Sally. So after Zach passed, his body was at this funeral home in town here in Chester, and we live in the middle of town, so we would walk there each day, and it was weeks before his service and everything, so every day we would walk to this terrible place. But what we found ourselves saying was, I'd say, Krista, it's not Zach, it's just a broken body, right? So now for some people that would be something that they have thought through all their life and everything else, but for us that was such an alien thing to come out of our mouth, and in retrospect that really wasn't us speaking. In hindsight, when we reflect on that, that was, in our opinion, that was really Zach speaking through us. So
did you have a belief before his accident, or were you just not really?
We were an ultra competitive family. We raced. Zach raced from being 4 years old. I had raced when I was a kid. My father had done. We've just come from sort of a lineage, if you like, of competitive motorsport. That was all we did. We didn't really have much of a life outside of that.
Did you believe before Zach's accident that there was an afterlife, that he was going to continue on? Because you say those words really didn't come from you. That's not Zach. That broken body, that's not Zach.
It is. I mean, I'll speak for myself, and then Chris can. I mean, I had a belief there was something else.
Right.
Hadn't had a focus on what that might be, and didn't really have much of an interest in it, because we're all going to live for a long time, and I'll worry about that later.
Yeah.
That was sort of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just knew, I knew there was more, and I didn't know what it was. And where I was brought up in a very religious household and place, which is probably, it was very good for me as a child growing up. It gave me purpose, I guess, and you know. But now, knowing what I know, I've not. For me, I'm not religious at all, but I'm very spiritual, and I think that helped me after Zach passed to see. I'm going to say, for me, the truth.
Right.
Yeah. So,
give you a couple of clues, right? So we'll dip in a couple of stories. So about 3 days in, Krista had this compulsion to go. This is what I call it anyway, compulsion to go to the crash site, right? The last thing I wanted to do was go to the crash site.
Well, I didn't want to go. Let me just reiterate that. I didn't want to go, but it felt like we had to go.
There you go.
There was like a pulling, and I just kept hearing, get to the crash site. You need to get to the crash site. And I'm like, what the heck do we want to go to the crash site for? I don't want to go to the crash site. But I had to go, and I told Martin and my mom, who was here at the time, we need to go.
So we went,
did.
right?
Yeah.
So up to going, we all know what it feels like. No point us talking about that. We all know what it feels like, right? And so we get there. We get to the crash site, and don't need to describe it. There's still debris in places, and because we'd been in motorsport forever, having had lots of crashes and seen lots of crashes, because that's just part of the sport, if you want to call it, it's quite easy to figure it out by seeing the place, right? That's why I didn't want to go. Didn't want to relive it in a way, in my mind. However, I have done later, and it was not quite what I thought. But anyway, that's something else. So we get there, and the three of us get out of the car, and we walk around and we do our thing, whatever that thing is, individually. 15, 20 minutes, there's nothing else we can do, and we go to get back in the car. When we get back in the car, all three of us almost simultaneously said, I can feel Zach's with us. It was extraordinary. Can't put words around that, just that I could have looked over and seen him, and it would have been absolutely no surprise. And that wasn't grief. That was, I'll call it our intuition, what we feel as souls when we're close to another soul.
It was knowing. We knew
it was a knowing.
was there.
Knowing, yeah, more than a physical feeling, you knew. Yeah.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So the car we got into, there's a story behind that. We won't go into the details of that, but it has different modes. It was something Zach had to have. It's the
Actually, Zach got it for Martin. Is the story?
That's another
behind
breadcrumb,
that.
actually.
He got that. Yes, he got it for Martin before he went home.
About 4 months before
He
he went
worked for
home.
Alpha, so he said, "Dad, we need one to get you one of these cars," and so he did.
So we did.
So
again, not the sort of thing we would do, because we'd always invested everything in Zach's, profession.
Yeah.
So we didn't really, we were perfectly fine with it, but we didn't have very many expensive material possessions. It wasn't like us. So for us to buy that in hindsight is also strange that we would have agreed to do that. But anyway, we get in the car, and this car is quite literally the fastest car in the world with 4 doors. That's its claim to fame. And it has these modes. It's important to get to these modes. And one of these modes is what they call race mode. And the car's completely different. It sounds different, which is the point, right? You can't leave it in that mode. When you turn the car off, it resets itself. And when you start it, you have to then select it. Very important. Because when we pulled up to the crash site, obviously it wasn't in that mode. And when we got back in the car and we all said, we know Zach's with us, and we started the car, it started off in that mode. Can't be done. It cannot be done. This is a computer. It's just zeros and ones. It's binary.
You even called Alpha.
I called Alpha. I called Alpha to say, hey, it's done this. It has a fault, and can't have done that. It's impossible for it to do that. It did that. So Zach was in the car. So that was one example very early on.
Right.
Love that.
Amazing.
I'll give you another one. So I think it was a day after that. Everybody's at the house supporting us, just as we all know what that feels like. And it's awful. And one of Zach's friends pulled up in their new Volkswagen camper van. So this guy had been blown up in Afghanistan. He has all sorts of PTSD. He'd lost all of his squad. He was the only survivor from it, so he understood what death is. And Zach and him were quite close, and his sister and Zach are very, very close. So there's a real community here, right? And that's, I think, is important to the story. So the van pulls up, and Jason, this guy, who won't mind us using his name, comes to the door and wants to show us his van. That's Jason's way of trying to support us, right? It's trying to take your mind off things. Last thing I want to do is look at this damn van. So I walk outside with Jason and a very close friend of mine, Simon, and we walk outside towards the van. And as we approach it, I hear Zach, as clearly as we're all talking now. You need one of these, Dad. I thought, I'm losing it. This is what grief is. It's finally sinking in. I'm going nuts, and I need help. That's what was going through my mind at the time. And he's like, no, you need one of these, Dad. You and Mum need to go off on the weekends. You need to go camping. You need to get away. You need one of these. And he was literally talking continuously and louder than the two guys I was with. So it was difficult for me to understand what Simon and Jason were saying over the volume in my head of Zach talking to me about it, right? I know you'll understand that.
Yeah, it's extraordinary how close that was to his passing, that you were hearing that clearly as well. And
sorry, Sally, go ahead.
Just for the benefits of people that are listening, because we talk a lot about telepathy. How would you say that? Were you actually hearing words or were you feeling words? Can you differentiate?
Yeah. I know just what you mean. I was hearing words. It was as if I was hearing them in my ears.
Right.
That's the best way to describe it, right?
And when Zach wanted something, I just want to throw this out there, it's like a peck. He would peck and peck and peck and peck and peck until he got it, right?
So this is classic
Zach.
Zach.
Is what he did to Martin. When this is what you told me.
Yeah, it is, absolutely.
This is what he did.
Yeah.
And he just wouldn't stop with Martin. It just wouldn't stop.
Yeah. You see, sometimes, and I'm curious then, because clearly you've got a very strong telepathic verbal communication there. Does it ever change more to knowing that you're hearing the words about you? Does it swing between both?
Yeah.
Right. I just wonder, because it does with me. I can hear very clearly, but sometimes it's more knowing the words being spoken. So you get both as well.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. Right. So we leave the van and we go inside, and as we're going inside, he goes, "I'll buy you one," right? And that just killed me. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, I replied to him. I said, "Zach, you can't. You're dead." Mm-hmm. And I walked in the house, right? So just as we walk in the house, he's like, "I'll buy you one." I mean, what the heck is that? He's been dead 5 days, right? So we go in the house, and I'm a mess, and the post arrives.
I was a mess too, but
of course we were, yeah.
No, but I mean, because of the story that you're going to tell them,
right? Which
connects.
Yeah.
So, but Zach already knew that. Go ahead. Yeah. So as Martin walks in, the post had come, and I saw the post, and I'd opened the post up, and in it was a letter from Zach's employer, and they needed to know the bank details to transfer the money that he was receiving from his passing, because we were the ones to get the money, and I just thought I couldn't take it. So to me, I said, I don't want it, I can't take it, and I'm losing it, crying, thinking I don't want that money. But then Martin comes in and tells me the story, and I then hand him the note and say, "You won't believe this. Look at this."
So that was
I handed it to him,
right?
But then it was easier to take.
Moment. Yeah.
It was easier to take the money because it wasn't money then. Zach really was buying us the van.
Yeah. Yes.
No?
So we didn't know anything about camper vans, right? And so we then go on this mission around the country looking at these things and trying to learn about them. And it's something to do, right? Yeah. You got to do something. So we did this. One day we finished up driving about 4 hours, which in the UK is a long time, about 4 hours to this one camper van place, which happened to be the same one that Jason had bought his from, right? And with us was Ella, Jason's sister. So there was Krista, myself, and Ella that went to this place. And it's a wet, miserable day. And this camper van place is like an old, disused gas station. And on it has got probably 40, maybe 50 of these camper vans. They're all VW camper vans. They all look the same to me. They're just different colors, right? And we're looking at one that the girls like because it's baby blue and white and it's really cute, right? And
Zach
Ella
wasn't having it.
No. And Ella says, has Zach said anything? Because Ella knows the story, obviously. And has Zach said anything? I said, no. And I walk away from them. And as I walk away from them, there he is again. This is the second time I hear him now. It's the red one 2 rows back, right? Wow. So from where I stand, I can't see a red one. And these things are packed in so tight, you can only just open the doors, right? So I walk 2 rows back and 2 rows back and 1 over. There's a red camper van, the only red camper van they have, right? So I'm blown away.
Yeah.
And the guy comes over to me and says, this is unusual because it's like a race car inside. I'm like, are you kidding me? What the heck, right? So Krista and Ella arrive and they're like, oh yeah, the red one's kind of cute. I'm like, yeah, Zach's just said it's this one. And they're like, oh my God, Anyway, the guy gets the easiest sale of his life because we're going to buy it, aren't we? Right? Now, what's interesting at this point is we don't know, not that it matters, we don't know what the life insurance policy value is. It's important later, but we don't know what it is now. And it doesn't matter if it's £1 or $1 million. We're buying whatever the value of this camper van is because Zach said we're buying this camper van, right? So we go into his office to do the transaction, and we've got to go pick it up in a couple of weeks. They've got to do some stuff to it, to add some stuff, right? And as we go in, the office is just a little office, and there's a table. It's a mess, or his desk. There's 2 chairs in front of his desk, and there's 3 of us. So Krista and I, neither of us want to sit down. So Ella sits down. So Ella sits at one of the chairs. And Krista and I are sort of sitting in the doorway, or stood in the doorway, excuse me. And then I see him. So he is like a million dots of light. Static would be another way to describe it. He's full color. It's him. You don't see through him. He's not a ghost. He's just made up of millions of little dots of light.
Where do you see him, Martin? Where do you see him?
He's sitting in the chair next to Ella with his right leg and his right butt cheek on the seat. And then his left leg and his left butt cheek are in the space between the 2 chairs. And his arm is around the back of Ella's seat. And they're both looking forward. And he doesn't acknowledge me at all. It's like the 2 of them are buying this camper van, right?
So how long did that vision last?
As long as I turned and I walked out, I just fell apart. So I don't know is the answer to that. I just crumbled and went to get back in the car. Krista checked on me and I said I'd seen Zach and we go home. So 2 weeks later, I know this is a long story.
Sorry, I'm just curious, just because for everybody just understanding these things when they happen, no one else could see Zach apart from you.
I didn't see him.
So Krista is standing next to you, looking in the same direction potentially, and so it was only you that was seeing it. What have you come to any determinations as to why that would be?
I think you were on probably a different vibration than I was at the time.
Right.
And Zach his vibration was very close to Martin, so he was able to see Zach at that point where I wasn't and Ella didn't. And Martin was in the doorway, and I was stood over here behind Ella, not directly behind her. We were a little ways apart, but we were at different angles. But I still didn't see him, but Martin did. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think it's vibrational too. The frequency you're seeing on they've proven to me through exercises time and time again. So it's just amazing, just incredible.
Yeah.
So we go back 2 weeks later to pick it up, and when we go back, they're very busy. And he apologizes for not being able to fill it up with fuel. And he says, did you want to buy anything else? Well, we didn't know what we were talking about, so we bought this other stuff, right? And then we had to pay for it. So at this point, we then knew the value of Zach's payout, right? And after we paid for it, but before we put fuel in it, it was within £100 of his payout, within £100, tens of thousands, and it's within £100, right? After we put fuel in it, there's £5 left out of what it is, right? So how can that be? How can that be, right? I really will finish with the van story in a moment. So a couple of months later, I get another quick download. To your point, this isn't in my ears now. This more feels like I feel what he says rather than hear what he says. And I just feel like he's telling us to go to the Northern Lights, to the place that's on his phone, right? Because there was a picture of Krista. Remember, Krista said that he changed from girl or race car to Northern Lights. So we looked through thousands of images on the internet before we found it.
But we found it.
We found it. It's on an island at the very, very north of Norway, and it couldn't have been further away. We just couldn't have been further away. So we plan a trip. We're going to go there, and we're going to see the Northern Lights on his birthday, the 17th of October. And we do a little bit of a rough math, Google map. We plan our trip. We're going to make the most of it. We're going to see 9 countries in 2 weeks. And it's roughly about 4,200 miles is what this trip maps out on Google, right? And we go, and we see the Northern Lights on his birthday. It's the only time that we see them. The 3 days we're there is just short period of time. So go ahead.
So can I just interrupt? And on his birthday, there's just a couple signs, because I love hearing signs from people. So on his birthday, where we were, we had rented this little cabin thing, and the bedroom was, the doorway to the bedroom was, you could see the kitchen. It was all very small. And I put my bag up on the counter in the kitchen, but you could see it from where the bed was. And I heard something, and then all of a sudden I heard a crash, and I was like, what the heck's that? And I looked out, and there was absolutely, because we debunk everything, there was no way anything could have caused that bag. It was full of stuff to knock off the counter, and Zach knocked it off on his birthday. And then he did say later to me, and that was me, Mom. Of course I did that. And then he moved a bag in the kitchen, or excuse me, in the bathroom, and I'm stood there watching it, and he literally moved it while I'm watching it. And this was all on his birthday, which I thought, so I wanted to throw that in there.
And you didn't doubt it at all? You didn't doubt the fact that bag, because that's it. We've had discussions in the community about them being able to physically move things, which of course they can, but it's so easy to think they can't. Surely they can't. Absolutely.
Oh, they can do everything.
Yeah.
So about a week or two before we went on the trip, we got another little download from Zach, and it's a moment, and he goes, "You're going to go. It's going to be exactly 4,500 miles this trip. Exactly. That's a weird thing. Okay, pretty close, Zach, because Google says it's going to be about 4,200 miles thereabouts, right? And so we cleared the odometer when we left on the trip, just because why wouldn't you? You know. Anyway, trip's coming to an end. We've just crossed back on the Channel Tunnel. Krista's gone to pay for the fuel. It's like 11 o'clock at night, and we put the sat nav or the GPS on and put home in. And while she's paying, I look at the mileage we've traveled, and I look at the miles left to go on the sat nav, and it is so close to 4,500 miles. I am just absolutely blown away, because we've done all these little excursions and stuff like that, like you do, you know. So we're all excited when Krista gets in the car. I can't even speak. I'm just like, look at, and off we go. So now we're going to try to help Zach do it, aren't we? We're going to try and get 4,500 miles. What's the chances of that? But we'll give it a go, right? So we get on the M25 around London. It's closed, diversion in the middle of the night. That adds miles on. So
same with Birmingham.
Yeah.
So the next 7 hours of driving is just setting us back all the time. And at some point, we just give up, right? Anyway, when we stop for a few hours sleep and everything else, long story short, when we drive through the gates at home, the time is 11:11 in the morning, and the odometer trips over to 4,500 miles as we drive through the gates. If we had gone on a roundabout for hours and then tried to plan that, and we didn't, of course, but if we had, you still couldn't do it.
No.
We drove through those gates at 11:11 in the morning, and the odometer, I know it sounds ridiculous. I know it sounds so far-fetched, and it's like you just pushed it too far, you're full of, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'll just quickly share, because I remember something very similar to that, where there was such a synchronicity of numbers. Mine was all time. I was walking home with the dogs, and I began to film the lamp, the street lamp, and I didn't realize till I was at home I filmed at 11:11. The length of my video was 1:11, and something else that coincided with the 11, and it made me think, how can they orchestrate all those things to come up with those perfect synchronized numbers?
Mm-hmm.
And it's
I mean,
mind-blowing.
I've come to some conclusions over the years. Maybe now is not the time to share them, but I'm not convinced. This feels very, very real to us all.
Mm-hmm.
It feels very physical. It feels like the only reality that could be real because we're living it. But I'm not convinced. I'm not. There's stuff that happens all the time. And yes, it's a reality, but I think there are infinite realities. And I think the real us, the real kids, are at a level that sort of controls this, and we control it, they control it. It's a shared experience, and sometimes they give us these clues that are comforting because they are so ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And I think the only way that could be, in my scientific mind, is it has to be manipulated in some way, and we're all doing that and they're doing that, and we're all together all the time. But anyway, I'll come to that.
We always say, if they made a movie, literally, of the signs that we all get, you know, the signs and the things that happen, and like the things that we've had happen, if they made a movie out of it, nobody would
so
believe
far-fetched.
Well,
because,
you know, it's thankfully science is catching up.
yeah,
Quantum physics is now proving everything that we're all sharing that's happening in our lives. But I just want to mention now, so all these sounds you're accumulating, I know people that are listening in now, some of them keep journals, some of them write. I personally always wrote, but for some reason, and I know it was guided, I took photos and videos. That's thousands and thousands of photos. That's my journal, everything. It's all video and photo, and there's big reasons for that later down the line. How did you record? How did you keep track of everything that was happening? What did you do?
We did the same in the very beginning. We journaled,
right
from day one.
Day one. So the trip that we went to Norway, there was sign after sign after sign after sign,
right.
And I've got it all journaled, and I've taken photos. So I've got a big log of that. So that's how we started.
So what now you know unequivocally you have Zach with you. He's interacting with you.
Sure.
So where's your journey going from this most incredible place of knowing that's
science, I think science and the real life. Mm-hmm. So because science is I don't think it's that real really, but science helps us prove our reality,
consciousness.
Well, hang on. Before, did you go down the scientific experimenting route? Did you start that before you created Zach's house, or did that happen afterwards?
We were starting that around about the same time. So, you know, we all, I think everybody we've ever spoke to, whenever they've gone through this experience, seems to have a thirst for knowledge. Mm-hmm. We all buy loads and loads of books, and we just read everything we can. Well, that was good, but after a little bit, because we're all individuals, I became frustrated because I didn't want to read about somebody's experience. I wanted to have my own experiences, right? And so it became, I actually switched off from books for a few years because I didn't want somebody else's experiences to possibly taint my experience. I didn't want me to
influence them. Very, very important. I was literally told to do similar.
Okay.
So that you are a blank slate and you are not going to filter your understanding of what's happening. And yeah, so I get that, but I want to, I'm kind of wanting to keep what's happening where you're sitting in the psychomantium to the end. So if we can do Zach's house, what led you to create Zach's house, what it's there for, what it's and so on.
Of course. So there's another, I'd love to share this sign, Sally, if it's okay, because again, I love hearing it from others. And this is a really amazing sign, and this happened in was it a year? Not quite a year, 6 months or so after Zach passed. It was his birthday again. So he's in October, so April, so maybe a year, about a year. So it doesn't matter, yeah. But this is one of my favorite signs that I've ever gotten from Zach. So, and I think some of you guys on here have heard it, but I'm going to say it again because we'd had a party for Zach, and we had about 42 of his friends over that day, and we had decided we're going to bring his race car home. So Martin brought his race car home. There was about 5 guys, brought it home, took it apart, and it's on the wall right here. I'll show you in a minute if you guys want to see it. It's literally bolted on the wall up here in the psychomantia. And then we had a birthday cake made out of his race helmet, which is behind us as well. And so those 2 things were very important. So after the party, this was, I think, the next day, we sat down on the couch, and I was on the couch. Martin was to my left on the chair, and Zach's friend's girlfriend was to my right on the couch. And I have Zach's Surface. It's a little touch screen computer that he had everything on it, and we had all of his photos on it. So as you do, I wanted to see photos because that's just, for me, that was healing. So I was like, just want to look through all the pictures. And so I'm looking through it, set it on my lap, and as you touch the touch screen, you can see the fingerprints. So it's sitting on my lap. I am not touching the screen. And I look at Martin, and I look down at the screen, and we all see it at the same time. One fingerprint went to 2 fingerprints. 2 went to 4. And you can see where Zach is touching the screen. You can see the fingerprints on the screen. And I was like, what?
Just think about that. Isn't that?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And then he literally, as he touches it, he makes it big. So
Right.
he's making the race car, which is what's on the screen at the moment, making it huge, fills the whole screen, fingerprints again, shrinks it back to normal size, and then it goes to 1 fingerprint, and he scrolls through the pictures, and he's scrolling through the photos, gets to his race helmet, did the same thing, fingerprints, made it huge, fingerprints back to normal, scrolled it back to his race car and left it and stopped. And none of us had our phones, and at that point, and so of course we weren't supposed to video it. That's just what we weren't supposed to video, but we were supposed to see it, and we were all gobsmacked. I mean, we couldn't talk. I was probably screaming at the top of my lungs because I was so excited, because I knew that for me, and I always knew Zach was with us, but that I saw, and I knew it was none of us.
I had no intention of sharing this, but I will do, because your Zach and his ability to manipulate stuff like that, it's reminding me, for those of you that don't know it, these are the cameras on my phone.
Yeah.
When we got together to have a session with Zach, somehow he put, and I couldn't see the whole photo of Zach that was behind where Krista and Martin were sitting in the session. It wasn't fully on screen at no point in Zoom recording can you see the full photo, but something very similar to that photo. He put his image in one of these circular cameras. And Martin and Krista saw it right at the beginning, and initially you think, oh my gosh, I've placed my camera at such an amazing point that it is reflecting Zach's image in there completely. And of course, later on, he moved his image. He completely moved his face. It moved. So no, sorry, but you just
no.
His abilities to manipulate technology is remarkable.
Yeah, really is. I think a lot of the kids, they can all do it. I think it's just, sometimes
being aware, but yeah.
Sometimes I know I've missed things because I'm either in my grief or I'm not paying attention. Whereas now I pay attention to everything. And like I say, I thank Zach for everything. So who cares if he didn't do something? I'm going to say, Zach, you know what? That was awesome. Thank you. And
so
even
let me ask you a question on behalf of the people that are here. What would you say to people then, because we're talking about a lot of amazing sign happenings and communications? What about those people that feel they're not getting any, they don't feel as if they're building a communication up? What would you say to them?
For me, I would just say, even if it's not the kids, I'm going to say, or your loved ones, making a sign. Let's just say, let's say a robin flies up the window, right? For us, we have a robin out here. I know it's Zach, and he flies up in there, and let's just say it's not Zach, but they're with us all the time. They hear everything and see everything. So the more you acknowledge, the more they realize, they know, oh, for me, Mom's paying attention, so I'm going to do something else now. And you get more. For me, personally, I've gotten more. So by acknowledging it, even if it's not them that time, who cares? They don't care. They're like, oh,
I'll take that
sweet,
one.
I'll take that one. Let's do another one. And, by acknowledgement, I would say.
What I saw on your website, and it will be put in the recording, zacshouse.org.uk, if I'm right.
Yeah,
bang on.
And I resisted the urge to go and dip into it, log in properly, because I wanted not to be influenced by anything there. But I did see on your 4 pillars that you have there, and I do recommend people go and look at it. One of the things you mentioned is mindfulness. And for me anyway, I think mindfulness, being able to live in your present moment, or at least part of it, not distracted by yesterday and tomorrow, is where you will find them, when you're actually mindfully present. And it is something that you can practice and work on to be able to live at least part of your life in a mindful way. And I think then you see more of the things that you're describing now. The world kind of opens up, and all of a sudden there's so much more there that, most of the time we just, and I'm not an expert on it, and I practiced mindfulness for many years before Tommy passed, but I try, for example, when I go to the car, to the shops, which is 2 minutes down the road, I'm going to get in the car and I'm just going to clear my mind. I'm not going to think of anything else. And I let them know, Tommy, the universe, I'm going to be present for this ride. And I'm not searching for anything, but I'm just present for it. It's amazing what you see. But other days I can get in it and it's, oh God, I've got to be back in 2 minutes. And if I don't get the milk, and so on, and you miss it. So it's an art that you can practice and incorporate into your life. And it kind of you just see so much more.
Totally agree, Sally. I mean, I'll go back to why we created Zach's House really quick. So our initial concept of Zach's House is not what Zach's House is. It's evolved from that. Our initial concept of Zach's House was that we would be able to sort of create a network of people that needed support, and be able to create a network of people that gave support. That was it. It was as simple as that, right? And we would just try to help people connect. what happened was we were led in a different way, basically. And where we've really got led is for us to be able to learn how to connect better and to help others be able to make that connection, just as you're saying about mindfulness and stuff like that, right? So we're not experts. We've got no formal education in this. We're not counselors. We're not prepared to be able to give people grief support and all those other things that we thought we wanted to be able to give at the beginning. We're just not equipped to do that. But what we are equipped to do is to be absolutely single-minded about continuing to grow our connection and learn about what's really going on, not this physical life that people are mostly so focused on. And anybody that sort of wants to come along with us for that, we're here. And that's so it's really,
correct me if I'm wrong, is it like you were going to be there really from a support perspective almost initially for grief and places, which is hugely important, and I know a lot of people, you know, really value the community built there, but the communication, the extraordinary thing to happen, were kind of started out as a byproduct, and then it was just that's where we're supposed to be going. Yes, that side of it's important, but wow, this is a major part of what we're supposed to be doing. Yeah.
And I still think in what we do now, it is for all of us, it is healing. So it is a form of therapy, because but it's proof instead of.
Well, now we're going to get down to what Martin did start to talk about, the scientific element before, because this is mind-blowing. This is for me, you know, there's an awful lot out there that people can watch and read about mental mediumship, an awful lot where you get your evidence through the senses of a medium. The spirit communication comes through medium senses, and they convey what they interpret and convey what they receive. But there is a whole other way that children on the other side can make their presence known, and it's quite extraordinary what you're building. And I'm not going to say any more about it. You just share. I'm really curious as well, because I don't know, how on earth did you think to do this? Was it Raymond Moody's book? Was it what? It was.
It was. We didn't think of this. We evolved. We have evolved it.
We were told and guided to do this.
Do you just want to describe briefly what a psychomantium is?
So Raymond Moody has lots of books. One's a little book. It's his smallest little skinny book. It's called Reunions. And in Reunions, the concept of the book basically is that it was several years after he'd started his study of life after life and all this other stuff. And his original purpose, of course, was for him to prove there wasn't, right? So if anybody knows Raymond Moody, he was actually out to prove there wasn't life after life. And as he continued to try to prove that was the case, he actually proved there is, right? And so in part of his studies, he was interviewing people who had had experiences with loved ones. And for him to be able to make that scientific and repeatable, therefore, he needed people to have them on command. Well, of course, that doesn't happen, does it? You can't have an encounter, or whatever you want to call it, on command. And so he started researching ancient cultures, and in millennia ago, they did. So the Greeks had a thing called a psychomantium. And that was essentially a place in northern, or a space in these caves in northern Greece. Can't remember what they called it in Greek, it doesn't really matter, but the purpose was this psychomantium that they created. And you could go there. You'd go there for a month. You'd go in these caves, completely removed from public life for about a month with, I'll call them spiritual people. And at the end of the month, you would go into this vault, and and there was a big cauldron there, and you would gaze into this space, and you would either feel like you went through it, like scrying, and you would feel like you went and entered into this other world, or they would come through the liquid and they would have an interaction. Okay. It's Greeks thousands of years ago. Raymond Moody, for all of his genius, thought, I think I'll give that a go. Right? So how he did it was he took his closet, put a mirror in it, put a chair in it, and got 10 of his PhD students studying something that's not about psychomantiums and not grieving people, to just go sit in that room for a few hours and see if you experience anything. And what he did with them was, before he got to sit in the room, they would sort of walk around his sort of estate for a few hours, talking about anybody that they knew that has passed, and off you went. That was his preparation, right? And half of them had an experience there and then, and half of the other half had an experience within about 24 or 48 hours. Well, I was bouncing off the ceiling when I read this. I'm like, I need one of those, right? And so we're in it, but it's evolved. And so, because Raymond made it look really easy, all you got to do is, we need a dark room, a mirror, a little bit of a candle or a light, and you just sit there and Zach's going to show up and we're going to have a hug and everything's going to be cool, right? Not so. So we took this space, which was a room we weren't using, and we painted it completely black. And there's a blackout blind behind us, so we can remove all the light from the room. And that didn't seem like it did anything. So we made a smaller room within the room. So we have a frame and like a tent, if you like. So we make the space smaller, because, on a side note, they used to have, in the Victorian era with spiritualism, they used to have a cabinet, and the medium would sit in the cabinet, like a little box, right? So I thought, still do, exactly. So I thought, we'll have a bit of that. So we made a smaller room within the room, and we didn't go small mirrors, we went big mirrors, right? Because you need, bigger's got to be better. So there's 2 mirrors on this wall. The mirrors are about 7 feet long, and the 2 mirrors together make the mirror about 5 feet high. So the wall is basically a mirror.
And it just so happened that these mirrors were in the house when we moved in the house, and we'd taken them out the bedroom to redo the bedroom, and we had these mirrors. They were already in the house.
Yeah. Yeah. It's right. And
sorry, I just remembered something else. Some of Zach's friends had stayed in that bedroom, and the mirrors were on the back of wardrobes. And one of the friends, he wasn't spiritual at all or anything, saw Zach through the mirror before we even thought about doing any of this and taking him down.
What was his reaction to that?
Oh, he went, pardon the pun, he went white as a ghost. He came down and he said, he goes, oh my God, I've just woken up. He goes, and I've just seen Zach in the mirror. He was in the mirror. He goes, I kept rubbing my eyes, rubbing my eyes, looked. He did it like 3 times, and he saw him in the mirror every time. And then when he went to look in the window, like at the window where he was stood, wasn't there, looked back at the mirror, and he was gone.
For anybody that wants to, mirrors can act as portals. If you can build the energy, they can act as portals for you.
I think you're right, Sally, about building the energy is the key.
Yeah.
Is building the energy. Yeah.
That's what it's all about, So we would come up here together for days, hours each day, gazing into this black abyss that was nothing, right?
Not knowing that each time you were doing that, you are building energy.
We were building it because we were committed. We were doing it over and over and over again, but we didn't have the formula right. So we were building the energy, but we were also building desperation.
Okay.
So we were so desperate for this to work that the harder we tried, the less we got. Because actually at the very beginning, we sat down and we sort of saw these sort of purpley patches and we sort of felt something. And we're like, oh my God, this is working.
And we do it together. Yep. Sorry to interrupt. We would do it together sometimes. And then sometimes we would do it individual. But when sometimes we did it together, we did see the same things.
Yeah, we did. True.
Which was peculiar, because you would think we wouldn't, but we saw.
Yeah.
I just want to mark something literally about a minute ago for those of the Alexes and so on, there was voice. Anyway.
Oh, that's awesome.
Amazing.
So we kept trying, and the weeks turned into months, and less happened, right? And then one day I came up here, and basically in this space there was a huge beanbag and a big lazy boy chair. That's what filled this space that was in front of the mirror with the curtain around it. And I walked in, and you go from daylight to pitch black, so you can't see anything. So I fumble around like I always did, and I was waiting to feel the big arm of the armchair, and it seemed like I'd moved further than I expected to do, but finally found it and sat down. But what I did was I'd walked past the armchair, and the arm I got was beyond the chair. So when I sat down, I missed the chair. You got it? And I sat down, and when I sat down and sort of collapsed against the wall, and there was this like space heater that was on the wall. It's still there. It's all bent, and I squished it, right? And it doesn't work, but I can never take it off the wall because of what happened. Mm-hmm. So I laughed, I joked, I swore, and it was just a big joke. You know, this thing doesn't work, right? And I sat in the chair, and you know, if you banged your head or you'd fallen, you sort of see stars sometimes. You know what I mean? So I sat there and I sort of saw stars. I'm like, my God, I must have hit my head. Because there were stars. There was these little dots of light in the very bottom left corner of the mirror, which after a couple of moments, I realized that was exactly where I'd fallen. Anyway, I got excited. And when I got excited, they fizzled away and just disappeared. I was like, all right, that's nothing. And then a couple of minutes later, it felt like the mirror wasn't there, and it felt like I was on top of Mount Everest. It felt infinite. It felt like the room was infinitely vast, and I was just a pinprick in the universe. That's the best way I can describe it. I'm not exaggerating that. It just felt infinite. It felt I could have touched the mirror and just fallen into the universe. I thought, well, this is really cool. That'd do, you know. And then these patches appeared in the mirror, if you want to call it that, these purpley patches that were incredibly faint.
I want to ask you, Martin, at this stage, there was no fear at this point when you're having
No,
this.
I'm about ready to be, but yeah.
And is that just simply because you're fascinated by what's evolving and trust?
Yeah, something's happening. So this might sound weird. Don't really have fear. So that's not a guy saying I'm not scared of anything. That's actually not necessarily a good trait. It's one of my traits. It's a Zach trait as well. It just doesn't. I just don't have that. So anyway, so it was all exciting, and these purpley blotches started to become brighter in my mind, because it could only be in my mind, right? Well, it wasn't, because. And I'm going to speak it now, but the time from them growing brighter to the end of the experience was probably 15 seconds at best. But it takes longer to verbalize it. So the clouds would get a little brighter and brighter, and I was like, oh my God, these seem brighter. And then I glanced, as they continued to get brighter, I glanced at the floor, and I didn't have carpet in here at the time, and the purple from the clouds was illuminating the floor. It was actually getting brighter in the room. The black beanbag, which was a shiny black beanbag, was reflecting purple light from it. And within seconds, I could complete, the room was, I kid you not, filled with light from these purple cloud that morphed into one. I know it sounds ridiculous, but
no, it doesn't. I don't think to any of us listening to this, it sounds ridiculous. I'm sure, as I think most people are. It's just mind blowing.
5 years ago, I would have looked at me and gone, this guy's absolutely crackers. But you can only live from your own personal experience, and this was my personal experience, you know. So the cloud comes out of the mirror, and it is a physical 3D thing in the room 3 feet above my head. and it's probably about 2 feet long, and it's a 2-foot blob of cloud that's bright, right? And then there's a bump that appears in the cloud. It's like there's something pushing out of the cloud. And as it continues to push out of the cloud, I realize it's like a forehead, because the next bump is like a hairline, and the next bump are sort of eye sockets and a nose. And within about 2 or 3 seconds, this face has pushed through the cloud as if the cloud was like fabric.
Right.
And as it pushes through, it's Zach. And it pushes through, and he turns and smiles and retracts, and it's black. And the whole experience, from the hint of the cloud having illumination to it going completely black, was probably about 15 seconds, and never had it since. But that was the start.
Did time feel as if it slowed down a little as you're having that experience? Was there a feeling of time slowing down or not? It was just
Honestly, no.
Okay.
Honestly, no. It felt real time.
Yeah.
It may have done, but from my perspective, it felt like time was normal. I felt time go weird, and this wasn't one of those. It just felt perfect. So I run downstairs. And Krista heard it a million times now, so I tell the story. But
I love the story.
you know, that's when the psychomantium started. That's when we really started to get some traction in here. There was a couple of Zach's very close friends that became interested in what we were doing, and the 4 of us come up here religiously every Thursday evening. And it's important that you have that. We think it's important that you have that discipline for yourselves, and I don't just mean the people with a physical body, everybody. So we think there's something to that cadence of same time every week. You're always going to do it. We're always going to do the same thing. Now, what we do is we change things a little bit every Thursday, but we always do this every Thursday. And over the years, we've added more equipment. So what's that about? So we have different cameras behind us up here. Can't point up there. You can't see them, but there are actually 4 different cameras on the shelf above us over there. And one of them looks in the visible light. It's just a good webcam. That's sort of our control camera for what we would see with our physical eyes. There is a camera next to it, which is called a New Energy Vision camera by a company called Oldfield Systems. It's readily available. That looks at photon emission in outside the visible light spectrum, and it takes ranges of frequencies and gives them an artificial color so we can see them. That's pretty exciting. That's just a research tool. It's in academia. And then we have a couple of other cameras which are called SLS cameras, which actually anybody can buy them. They're super cheap. I'll give you a little story about that. So they're made by Microsoft, and they were originally made for the Xbox. So when the Xbox came out and you could move around and play a game, right? That was called Kinetic. And when when Microsoft were developing that, there was occasionally people that the camera saw that wasn't there. So Microsoft spent years trying to debug this. They invested billions into this product. And they came to the conclusion that every now and again there were anomalies, right, that they couldn't answer. So what the camera does is it takes it looks for human form. So it looks for a head, a torso, 2 legs and 2 arms. When it sees that, it creates a color. So it creates an image of that. And then within the image, it makes a green stick figure. And it uses the green stick figure to operate the game. We don't do it for that. We do it so we can see what we can see. And
how did you decide to do this? I mean, what drew you to? Well, I will just buy this equipment that people use for gaming and.
Yeah, we had stuff dropped in. We had stuff dropped in.
But I'm gonna say it's not just Zach, because there's lots of kids and lots of loved ones who are part of Zach's house
Yeah.
It's not, we're not Zach's house. We, all of
Yes.
us, are
Yeah.
Zach's house. So they've guided us along the way, and it's been really amazing. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. So I'll give you a couple of examples of these different cameras of what we've seen. So with the camera that makes the stick figure, we have been able to record a mum holding hands with her son who no longer has a physical body.
Yeah.
Recorded that.
Yeah.
That's not a, oh, we wish it was. It's there. They communicated with each other. We could see the small figure of the child. She spoke to him. He raised his hand.
On the website, isn't it?
He raised his hand. They held hands. It's they're together. They're always together. The only thing that's happened is we're in a space that makes it easy because we've worked hard at creating the space, and we've worked hard at finding physical tools to allow us to record physical experiences. We've done that. And there's people that have had, I'm using one there, there's all sorts of amazing experiences we've had. Another one with a different piece of equipment on the new Energy Vision camera. Krista was, we always record all our sessions in this room. There's 4 cameras, there's 3 microphones of different frequency ranges. We have all sorts of stuff in here. It's a laboratory, right? So on a Thursday night, Krista is sitting in the beanbag with headphones on and a blindfold. The headphones are playing certain frequencies from the Monroe Institute, which allows us to connect more easily. The mask removes any interaction she can have, and it has noise cancelling. So when we're in the room, we can speak, and whoever is experiencing this is isolated from it, right? So Krista says in the room, I feel Zach. And she puts her hand out, and for the next 20 minutes, she's interacting with Zach.
Oh, and I felt him. He's so cheeky, as we say here, or ornery in the States we say, and he would do stuff. When he was physically here, he would do stuff, and I could hear him laugh, and he'd be joking around, and that's what I heard and felt. And I had my hand out, and he was pushing on my hand, and he was pushing so hard that it gave my arm a cramp. And I remember that as I'm I'm not in a trance state, but I was in, meditative state, and I felt it, all of it. And I just knew he was there, and he was laughing and pushing down. I could just knew it was there.
So here's what's important to that.
Was cool.
Krista had that experience, but that was Krista's own personal experience. Nobody else could have experienced that, only Krista. And so when Krista relays that experience, there's no way of validating that. It could be Krista, bless her, right?
Yes, I know where you're going with this. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It wasn't, because one of the cameras, the new Energy Vision camera, as Krista said, Zach's here, a pair of footprints materialized that we could see through this new Energy Vision camera. They stayed exactly where Krista had her hand for the entire duration of where Krista had her interaction. And as Krista said, oh, he's going now, within 2 or 3 seconds of that, the footprints faded out of view, and we have that recording. So that changes everything, because what it means is it's no more real than it was, because it was real. But what it does is it gives you the confidence to go, oh my God, I'm not going crazy. There's some physical instrument that's recorded my non-physical experience, right? And when you can have that, it can change your world, because anything that you questioned before, you shouldn't question anymore, because we've proven it's real.
I think
and that changes everything.
This is, for me, my work with energy is huge, because it provides evidence in a way that mental mediumship simply cannot, because it's a share, people aren't just listening to somebody's experience, they can witness it themselves. They can see and hear it for themselves. You can't get better evidence than that. And it's incredible what people have been able to experience through, their experiences with you and the psychomantium. It's just, including me, to see, just mind-blowing. And many people, I'm sure, that are here as well. I mean, I've heard lots of their experiences. To have physical objective proof, there's just nothing better than that. And even outside the personal nature of having physical objective proof, you're showing something to the world.
Yeah. The ultimate thing, one more thing, just really quick, and I'll stop talking, I promise. I'll give you what our ultimate goal is, and we're a long way off this ultimate goal. But our ultimate goal is that we will be able to have somebody come up, we'll be able to put headphones on them and an EEG, and we will be able to control the sounds that we give them and adjust those sounds by recording and understanding what their brain activity is, to be able to adjust their brain into frequencies that allow them to connect more easily. So we want to be able to help them do it, right? That's our ultimate goal. And then so we put them in a space that we have all worked on creating, that, if you want to call it, the veil is thin, if you like. We then put the person with a physical body into a state that allows them to take advantage of that, if you like, thinning of the veil. And then we will record all that at the same time, so that they do have possibly some proof of the experience that we hope they have. And that's our ultimate goal of Zach's House. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
And we do a lot with the Monroe Institute, and their meditations work with, like, they call it sound science, but it's like hemisync, if you want. So it's really important to listen to that, because that does adjust and change your brain waves, and that's quite cool.
Well, Kat Lee very kindly, through you guys, actually, she actually facilitates your meditations with Monroe. That the group has access to, and they are fabulous. I still listen to the very same, and I told you when we were speaking before that I listened to back last summer. It's just still one of my absolute favorite ones to spend 40 minutes going on a trip. It's just quite amazing. It's astonishing, and what you're doing and how you're progressing. I'm really excited to want to keep. You must keep in touch, must keep letting us know what's happening, and I'm sure there'll be many people, if they weren't aware of what you're doing, that are listening now, that will be having a look and reaching out to you. Is there any overall words that you'd want to say to people so far of what you've discovered to date?
Oh gosh, for me, that I would say that we never die. That's what I know. Is we're living this life. Yes, it's really difficult sometimes. Of course it is, because we're living a physical existence, but that's not who we are. And we are, and I know you've heard this probably before, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So we are so much more than our bodies, and we are so capable in the physical and outside of the physical of doing things that just seem unreal, but because we are energy, how do I word it? Well, we're just capable of doing amazing things, as our kids and loved ones are as well. Like Martin created this thing, it's called a theremin, and some of the group have, and this thing's awesome. And he can, I think we've got some kits, so he's done it. I'll let you explain it.
So a guy in the 1920s, I know we're taking a lot of time, I'm sorry. So a guy in the 1920s, a guy called Thurman, created a new electrical musical instrument. And essentially it is a radio transmitter receiver, if you like. And so it creates a field, a very small field of electrical radio energy. And when something physical interferes with that field, then it makes a noise. So there's a field that is emitted by the theremin, and there's another part of the theremin that is looking to see if that field changes. And when that field changes, it makes a noise. So who cares? Why is that important? It's important because if you put your hand close to it, you're interfering with the field, and so it makes a noise. But what if they interfere with the field, with their hand or with their energy and everything else? It goes off. And so it's, again, something that we can't see them, but we can experience them being here because they're able to interfere with this field and make it go off. And they can interact with us through that. And it's a bit like a voice box in a way.
Yeah.
It's
amazing.
And the other cool part about it is when you put your physical hand there, it makes a certain type of tone. But when they interact with it, it's a different tone that we can't simulate with our physical hands. So it's clearly differentiating between us and them. Anyway,
unless somebody had their mic switched on that shouldn't have done, there was something else was just said. So anyway, it's interesting things.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now let's go on to questions, shall we? Are you ready for it? It's been fabulous, because when we talk, we could talk all day. I mean, never run out of things to talk about, but let's bring in some of the questions that Alex has okay. I don't know the name of Alex's question. I think you have already given us the ultimate goal, which is tremendous. What next in the short run, or how long before you get close to your own ultimate goal?
Soon, we hope.
So I can tell you where we're up to.
Yeah.
We're now doing recordings with simple EEGs called a muse, and we're at the point whereby we do guided meditations using the muse and adjusting the frequencies, so we can guide somebody looking at their brain activity. And we've had some levels of success with that. So it's very, very early days, but that's where we are with that. I don't think for now there's very much more recording technology we can think of, but how we understand what we're recording, we can definitely improve upon. And that's the next step for us.
That's great. Linda, actually, while we're talking, would like to know more about the room. Is there any more that you can share? I don't know how easy it is from where you're sitting to show Zach's car. Is it?
Sure.
But since you're around, we've got some of the kids on the wall. And
yes.
Anybody that is welcome to, by the way, send us a photo and we'll put the kids.
There you go.
Retreat. Yeah. If you come for a retreat, then you can put your kids or loved ones.
Everybody can see how it's pitch black in there, and there it is. There it is. Just to remind everybody who won't, that's actually a racing car which weighs an absolute ton that is off the wall. Just incredible.
That's the room. It's quite small if you want. I mean, you've seen it now. So physical size, it's 20 feet long and about 12 feet wide. That's how big the physical room is.
You did share, you made it smaller, didn't you? It is smaller. The room is smaller.
And we sometimes make it smaller by making this tent inside with this frame. And when you saw me turn around, you could see the white screen, which is a projector. We use that for a TV, but also we have all of our recordings into one panel, so we can look at all of the recordings simultaneously. We need a big screen to be able to do that.
Behind that screen is the mirrors.
And behind that screen is the mirrors.
So yeah, they're behind that.
Just thinking of, you said the smaller, and sometimes you put a smaller, reminds me back again to what, traditional physical mediums use cabinets to build energy. And what is interesting, what you were talking about, you come together at the same time every week. You do that. And that's another thing. And I'm not talking about your traditional physical mediums now that work with ectoplasm. I'm talking about the Robin Foys of the world. I'm talking about me that work with energy. Yes, that's what you do. I meet them. There's a few of them here every Monday at the set time, and we're building energy. It's possible.
It is.
It's just, yeah, it's.
Speaking on energy, Sally, I wanted to throw something out there as well. So probably a lot of us that are listening in the group work with energy, but I love working with energy as well, and it does change your vibration. So I am able to do, I was lucky enough to get my Reiki masters, and so now doing that, I'm able to give that healing through, they use me as a conduit. I don't use my own energy, they use it, and you can feel it, and it changes me as a physical being. I can feel the difference when I do it. And I also do sound healing, and I want to say that for other people in there, and it might sound silly to chant, if some people go, oh, I can't do that. Yeah, you can. Who cares? If you chant, if you just that's your crown, and it connects everything as you do that. So I play the bowls a lot, crystal bowls, and as I play those, I don't even know what I say half the time. I just, whatever comes out just comes out. But I would just suggest to people, even if you have if you have a Himalayan bowl or anything, play it, because the frequency in it changes you, and as your voice changes with it, and so the energy around you, how do I explain it? You probably know what I mean, but the energy around you changes because the vibration changes inside and outside, and it really makes a difference in connection. And that's what I was going to say. So when you're trying to connect, if you can, and some days it's really difficult, and so if you're in a bad way or a bad place, don't worry about it, but on the days you can, try and do it, and it really, really works. It changes.
Yeah, I'm sure you've given some people some ideas.
Sorry, so I got off on this.
No, I think it's
sorry. Yeah. I meant to say that earlier and I just remembered.
Eva mentioned, she just was making a comment that her bathroom / prayer room mirror has become magnificent in communicating with Kyle. Yeah, again, mirrors, portals, absolutely.
Yeah, portals. They are. Yeah.
On that really quick. So we talk about portals. You brought a couple of times, and we have too. They're real.
Yeah.
I know that because we're able to record and see it. And so I won't go into much more than that, but I can tell you that, some of the old myth and legends, and folklore, and, we're now able to validate some of these things because we can actually record and see them. Not that it matters, because we should be able to step away from having to see and record these things, but it helps us. It helps us move forward.
For the very reasons we spoke about earlier, is it's if it can be objectively seen, and yours can, and I've seen it, and it's magnificent. It's absolutely magnificent. My energy fields from the physical mediumship open portals. I've never seen them, but I know that's how that I'm able to produce physical phenomena too. But to be able to see something that you've achieved in that room is just.
We didn't even know it was there until Zach told us, and there was another member of the group who was here with us, and she's the one that said while she was under meditation and the headphones, and she said, "Oh, you need to put the camera in the mirror." And we're like, "What?"
When we did, there it was.
So we put it in, and there it was.
You see, that's another good point. We would never have done that.
Never.
It was her son communicating through us to tell us to do that. So it's teamwork.
Zach stepped through the mirror, and we've got it on video. And it's like, what?
If you think about what we're talking about here, you just step back from it.
Mind
Mm-hmm.
blowing.
Mind blowing.
Brilliant.
Let me carry on with the questions here.
Sorry,
no. No. Kim asks if if we are able to experience this at Zach's house. I'm not quite sure what she means to experience. Perhaps what happens.
We do retreats. Does she mean like in retreats?
So I can sort of answer that.
Yeah,
so
there is another question actually about when is your next retreat. That's the
okay. So we do 4 retreats a year right now. So every quarter we do one. We try to limit the group to a small group.
Very small, really.
And 2 of those retreats are exclusive to bereaved people. And 2 of those retreats are open to anybody who wants to sort of study what we really are. So the exploration of consciousness. So I'm terrible on the dates. I think the next one's April, and then we do another one June. So it's every quarter after that.
It's fabulous. So people, and that's.
And you just come. You come for the weekend is how it works. We all stay together. We all live together, and we do all sorts of crazy things. That's what we do.
I will say that they live in Chester. For anybody that doesn't know Chester, it's one of the prettiest towns you could go and visit in the UK. It's absolutely gorgeous.
It is pretty. Yeah, it's a really lovely town.
Yeah, that's how
we have a lot of fun.
Come stay with us.
Yeah, and it's usually 2 days. Well, Friday night and then
Saturday and
Saturday and then Sunday.
Yep.
Again, unless somebody's got the mic on that shouldn't, there was some more voice then. Yeah.
Come.
You're always talking, though. Yeah, love it.
A last question here. Can anybody join in on the meditations each week?
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
very well. The ones that work well for US times, you'll find links within the Hearts Master community. They are there, but go to Zach's House's website and
yeah. Because Sally, you have your own. You do meditations as well, don't you? So you.
I do. Yeah, I do them via Symphony. Yeah. So and these.
And
these are the ones that Kat facilitates.
Kat Lee does. Does them. So the US time would work good for cats. However, some people come to both if they want. That's great too. And then we do the ones in the UK, but there's always a
7
Tuesday.
p.m. UK time, 6 p.m. Eastern. So you get, like Krista says, you can do 2 in a day if you like.
And we often, so if you wanted to come, I'm just going to stick this out there too. There's an app and it's called Expand and it's through the Monroe. And if you can download that on your phone, that's usually what we use to do the meditations with. So you could, I won't go into detail, but if you wanted to do it, anybody can download that and then we can walk them through the process if they wanted to do it.
This is so. Okay, this is the last question, so don't send me any more. This is the last one. How old was Zach when he went home, and how long had he transitioned when you purchased the camper van?
He was 20 and a half to the day. So he was born October 17th and went home April 17th. So it's precisely 20 and a half. Everything Zach did was precise, and so that was another breadcrumb we understood later. And we bought the camper van about 3 months after he went home.
Right. And off you went to see the Northern Lights. Oh my gosh. Your story is just incredible. Just amazing, and what you've achieved is mind-blowing. I'm so glad that you came and spent this time to talk with everybody, to share your story and share what you're doing. And I know people will be on the edge of their seats, listening to everything that you've been saying. So I want to thank you hugely, and I'm so grateful that our paths crossed this lifetime. If everybody would like to unmute and say thank you as well to Krista and Martin.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was
wonderful.
To have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So blessed to be part of the Zach's House community. Thank you, guys.
We're blessed to be
thank you
together.
enough.
Listen, it's not us. It's all of us. All of us. And all of us.
Yeah.
You know, we're all in this together.
Yeah. True.
We're doing it together. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Sally,
you.
thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Thank
Much
you.
love.
For anybody that wants to, you know, mirrors can act as portals. If you can build the energy, they can act as portals for you.
I think you're right, Sally, about building the energy is the key.
Yeah.
Is
Mhm.
building
I
the
think
energy. Yeah.
That's what it's all about, you know. So we would come up here together for days, hours each day, gazing into this black abyss that was nothing, right?
Not knowing that each time you are doing that, you are building energy.
We were building it because we were committed. We were doing it over and over and over again, but we didn't have the formula right. So we were building the energy, but we were also building desperation.
Okay.
So we were so desperate for this to work that the harder we tried, the less we got. Because actually, at the very beginning, we sat down and we sort of saw these sort of purpley patches and we sort of felt something. And we're like, oh my God, this is working.
And we do it together.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. We would do it together sometimes. And then sometimes we would do it individual. But when sometimes we did it together, we did see the same things.
Yeah, we did. True.
Which was peculiar because you would think we wouldn't,
yeah.
but we saw.
Yeah.
I just want to mark something literally about a minute ago for those of the Alexes and so on, there was voice. Anyway.
Oh, that's awesome.
Amazing.
But what if they interfere with the field, with their hand or with their energy and everything else? It goes off. And so it's again something that we can't see them, but we can experience them being here because they're able to interfere with this field and make it go off, and they can interact with us through that. And it's a bit like a voice box in a way.
Yeah.
It's
amazing.
And the other cool part about it is when you put your physical hand there, it makes a certain type of tone. Yeah. But when they interact with it, it's a different tone that we can't simulate with our physical hands. So it's clearly differentiating between us and them. Anyway,
unless somebody had their mic switched on that shouldn't have done, there was something else was just said.
Retreats are open to anybody who wants to sort of study what we really are. So the exploration of consciousness. So I'm terrible on the dates. I think the next one's April, and then we do another one June. So it's every quarter after that.
It's fabulous. So people, and that's.
And you just come. You come for the weekend is how it works. We all stay together. We all live together, and we do all sorts of crazy things. That's what
I
we
will
do.
say that they live in Chester. For anybody that doesn't know Chester, it's one of the prettiest towns you could go and visit in the UK. It's absolutely gorgeous.
It is pretty. Yeah, it's a really lovely town.
Yeah, that's
we have a lot of fun.
Come stay with us.
Yeah, and it's usually 2 days. Well, Friday night and then
Saturday and
Saturday and then Sunday.
Yep.
Again, unless somebody's got the mic on that shouldn't, there was some more voice then. Yeah.
Come.
They're always talking, though. Yeah, love it.
A last question here. Can anybody join in on the meditations each week?
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
very well.
There are the ones that work well for US times. You'll find links within the Heart Smarts community. They are there, but go to Zach's House's website and
yeah. Because Sally, you have your own. You do meditations as well, don't you? So you.
I do. Yeah, I do them via Symphony. Yeah. So